This is the tallest building in the world and the 450-meter tall Twin Towers in Malaysia. You probably know about this too. They were built by Samsung, which initially sold noodles, fish and vegetables. But today this company works in various sectors including fighter jet ships, tanks, consumer electronics, insurance, finance and chemicals. However, most of us know Samsung because of their mobile phones, TVs, refrigerators and electronic items. And when Chinese brands made their entry into the market, everyone thought that Samsung would eventually end up like Nokia, because we didn't know the real size of Samsung. Today, after Google, if anyone controls Android, it's Samsung. And no matter which company in the world it is, making a smartphone without Samsung's help is very difficult, whether it's Google's Pixel phone or Apple's iPhone. Now you might be wondering how a company that sold noodles, fish and vegetables built such a huge business empire. The story is very interesting. Samsung has a lot of controversies to its name, and for its fast expansion, it had to take some wrong paths several times. Let's know everything in detail in this video. This is someone who belonged to a rich family in South Korea. And at just 20 years of age, he started the Samsung Trading Company. And for your information, in Korea, Samsung means 3 stars, where the number 3 represents big and powerful in Korea, and star means everlasting. And today, big, powerful and everlasting are perfect words to describe Samsung, but it wasn't like this in the beginning. Samsung used to be a small trading company, which gradually expanded its business throughout South Korea and some neighboring countries. Their head office was in Seoul City, and by 1950, when the war with North Korea started, their name was already among South Korea's top 10 trading companies. And friends, Samsung's real story starts. The story begins. Due to the war, they had to move their base from Seoul to Busan, and the business situation became so dire that survival was difficult. Forget about exporting, people became dependent on imports for food and drink. As soon as the war ended, Lee decided to diversify his business. He started working to make affordable products for people. Sugarcane production is quite large scale in Korea. So, Samsung started with a sugar refinery, and with its profits, they entered the textile industry to meet the need for affordable clothing for people. Samsung started Korea's largest woolen mill and also began making clothes. Friends, Samsung's diversification saved the company from sinking. Therefore, Lee began to follow this strategy even more aggressively and started investing his profits in different areas. Samsung also opened several departmental stores and entered the insurance business. As of today, Samsung is Korea's largest insurance company. With all these business expenses, Samsung generated so much money that Lee Byung-chul became the richest man in South Korea. Then came the year 1968, when the Samsung board decided to enter the field of electronics. And within a year, Samsung Electronics launched its first product in the market, which was a 12-inch black and white TV. And within a few years, Samsung became the world's #1 TV manufacturer. And this success motivated Samsung to make even more electronic products. Samsung launched microwaves in 1979, air conditioners in 1980, color televisions in 1981, and personal computers in 1983. But they soon realized that for all these electronic items they had to depend on another company for small parts, so they bought a semiconductor company and started making parts for themselves. And then they increased their semiconductor chip production capacity and started exporting them globally. Today, even Apple uses Samsung's memory chips in its phones. Besides this, Samsung has several divisions that will absolutely shock you. Samsung Heavy Industries is one of the largest shipbuilders in the world. Another division is Samsung Construction and Trading, which works on roads, tunnels, bridges, and many large building projects. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Samsung built Dubai's Burj Khalifa and Malaysia's Twin Towers. Additionally, South Korea's largest theme park, Everland, several luxurious hotels, and an entire town known as Samsung Town are owned by Samsung. Now, those who thought Samsung was just a mobile phone or consumer electronics company were only seeing a small part of the iceberg. We haven't even mentioned Samsung's non-profit foundation, which includes Samsung's University and Medical Center. Yes, Samsung Medical Center. A young entrepreneur starts with a small business, diversifies his business into different markets. No obstacles, no challenges, and in a very short time builds a multi-billion empire. This story sounds like an incredible business success, but it's not the whole story. Friends, the story behind its success is very controversial. So let's understand the dark side of this success journey. After the war, South Korea's economy was devastated. Production and export had completely stopped. The Korean president wanted to expand his economy, and for this, he decided to support large corporate groups. But the way of support was completely unethical. Loans were given to big businesses like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai on easy terms. Tax concessions were given so that their business empires could grow, and the country's economy could also grow. Even when Samsung entered the electronics field, the Korean government reduced the taxes on electronic companies by up to 50%, and to protect them from competition, the government banned Japan and many countries from selling electronic products in South Korea, forcing consumers to buy Samsung products. Such benefits were given to Samsung, due to which it went far ahead of its competitors. And according to some reports, even the American relief fund received after the war was used for Samsung's benefit. And all this was possible because of Samsung's founder Lee, who was known for making strategic political connections and was a good friend of the South Korean president. And because of this friendship, Samsung always received special treatment. Unlike other companies, there was no export limit on Samsung. They never felt a lack of refunds because the doors of government banks were always open for them. However, Korea also started benefiting from Samsung's fast growth. Many people started getting jobs in the form of employment, but small Korean businessmen started getting ruined because how could a small company compete with a government-supported giant like Samsung? Samsung became so powerful that in any new field they entered, they had the power to destroy other businesses. And in this way, South Korea's economy unknowingly became too dependent on one company. Samsung was heavily involved in various industries in South Korea, and in 2014 alone, Samsung's contribution to South Korea's total GDP was 17%. The story of LG and Hyundai is somewhat similar, but Samsung is the biggest among them, and the way a few selected companies took control of the entire Korean business empire. Most of South Korea's money, power, and influence went into the control of 2 or 3 business. After Lee's death in 1987, his son Lee Kun-hee took over, during whose time Samsung's relationship with the government became even more controversial. In 1996, he was accused of bribing a former president, but due to Samsung's government connections, the then president pardoned him without any action. A similar incident happened in 2008, when Lee Kun-hee was found guilty of tax evasion and a scandal, and he was removed from his position and sentenced to 3 years. But the next year, at that time,
then president pardoned his sentence and he again became the chairman of Samsung. As if nothing had happened. From this you can understand the relationship between Samsung and the Korean government. Even after this, he was accused of bribing government officials to make his son Lee Se-yong the head of Samsung. Then his son Lee Se-yong too was accused of bribing 2 people. They were found guilty but no action was taken on any charges. Today no one has the courage to raise voice against Samsung. People know that raising voice against Samsung means raising voice against the government, and most of the people of South Korea have now started believing that no one can defeat Samsung and it is above the government rules and laws. Now friends, you must be understanding the background of Samsung's journey mentioned in the beginning of the video. It is also important to mention an incident in Samsung's history, which shook its reputation and market share. This is the story of 2016, when news of blasts in Samsung's Note 7 series mobile phones started coming. The news of phone explosion became a headline in the media all over the world. This phone was even banned in airlines. There was so much pressure on Samsung that it had to stop the production of the phone and also recall the phones in the market. Due to which Samsung suffered a loss of $5 billion. At that time the company had said that the reason for the explosion was the mobile's battery. But later the truth came out that a feature-rich smartphone was desperately needed to compete with Apple. Samsung had prepared it in a hurry by its design team and engineers and released a dangerous phone in the market without proper testing and quality control. However, despite all these controversies and bad practices, Samsung continued to be successful. It kept introducing its innovative products one after the other, due to which its size, revenue and its hold in the world were maintained. In the last few years, these cheap and feature-rich Chinese phones had definitely reduced Samsung's market share in India, But the current sales figures show that people's love for these Chinese brands is now decreasing, and once again, Samsung is going to make a strong bounce back. Hope you liked this video too. See you soon with a new video. Thanks for watching.